Because of why I search the deep through endless nights, no time to sleep. The call inside I can't deny. I'll find the light because of why.
Hey everyone, and welcome. You know when you're scrolling through photos of Iceland with its insane glaciers and waterfalls, and you just think, I have to go there? Yeah, me too. But anyone who's actually taken that next step and booked a trip quickly realizes something else. Whoa, why does everything cost so much?
Iceland is absolutely famous for its stunning, otherworldly landscapes, but it's also kind of infamous for its sky-high prices, especially when it comes to food. It's one of those places where the receipts you get can be just as breathtaking as the scenery.
So what is the real story behind that super expensive bowl of soup? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. In this explainer, we're going to peel back all the layers. We'll start with the initial sticker shock, then we'll literally follow the food on its long journey to the island. We'll dive into the price of protecting local farmers, check out the unique local market, and finally, we'll answer the million-dollar question, how do actual Icelanders afford to live there?
Okay, let's kick things off with a moment I think every tourist in Iceland has experienced. You've had an amazing day exploring, you're starving, you sit down for a simple, cozy meal, and then the bill comes.
Just take a look at this. This comes from a real traveler's post online. $70 for 2 bowls of lamb soup and 2 sodas. And we're not talking about some 5-star restaurant here. This is the kind of bill that makes your jaw drop. And honestly, it's a super common story.
Right, and that's not just a one-off thing, it's the reality for so many visitors. So where does a price tag like that even begin? Well, the first part of the answer starts way before the food ever hits a plate. It starts with just basic geography.
I mean, just look at where Iceland is on a map. It's this beautiful, remote island nation, kind of sitting all by itself in the middle of the North Atlantic. And while that isolation makes for incredible landscapes, it's also a huge economic hurdle. It's the very first domino to fall in a long and very, very expensive supply chain. Think about it. The country has a population of just under 400,000 people, but they also have to feed more than 2 million tourists who visit every single year. There is just no way they can grow and produce everything they need on the island. So that means one thing: imports. A lot of imports.
Let's trace the journey of something really simple, like a tomato. First, it has to be shipped from another country, probably by sea or maybe by air. Then it gets to an Icelandic port, it has to go through customs, then it gets moved to a warehouse, and then it's finally trucked across the country to get to a grocery store. Every single one of those steps adds cost.
And as you can see here, logistics isn't just the price of fuel for a boat. It's this whole bundle of expenses: warehousing, all the administrative paperwork, managing inventory, you name it. Every little piece gets baked into that final price you pay. And believe it or not, we're just getting started. So the journey itself is a big piece of the puzzle. But once the food actually arrives in Iceland, a whole new layer of costs gets piled on, mostly thanks to government policies that are actually designed to protect their own local industries.
See, to help out its own farmers and make sure the country has some level of food security, Iceland has these really high customs tariffs on a lot of imported foods. A tariff is basically just a tax on an imported good. It makes the foreign stuff more expensive, which gives the local products a fighting chance.
And when I say high, I mean staggering. Look at this. Cut potatoes from outside the EU get hit with a 76% tariff. 76%. Beef can get a 30% tariff on top of a fixed fee. The goal is pretty clear: make the imported stuff way more expensive so people are encouraged to buy local.
And then, just when you think all the costs have been added up, there's one last surprise waiting for you at the register. It's called the value-added tax, or VAT, and it's a whopping 24% on most things. So that price that already includes shipping, logistics, and import taxes, yeah, go ahead and add another 24% right on top.
Okay, so we've covered all the costs of getting food to Iceland, but what about the factors happening inside Iceland? Because the local economy itself plays a massive role in all this.
Because Iceland has such a small population, its market is also really small. This can create something that economists call an oligopoly. That's just a fancy word for when a handful of big companies control most of the market. And with less competition, well, they have more power to set higher prices.
And you can see how all these local factors start to snowball.
Since the market is small, businesses can't get those cost savings that come from operating at a massive scale. Then you have to factor in the very high wages, which is awesome for workers, but it drives up the operating costs for every single business. This all leads to a market where one single company, Hagar Group, controls over 30% of grocery sales through its bonus stores.
So, this all brings us to the most obvious question of all, right? If everything is this ridiculously expensive, how on earth do Icelanders afford to live there?
This quote from a local pretty much nails it. Tourists and locals are basically living in two totally different economic worlds. Icelanders aren't eating out every single night like a tourist on vacation might. They cook at home. Plus, a lot of their other bills, like electricity and heating from all that cheap geothermal energy, are actually super low.
And here's the other side of that coin, the really big piece of the puzzle. Salaries are incredibly high. The average monthly income back in 2022 was over $6,000. That kind of earning power is really the key that makes the high cost of living not just survivable, but actually manageable for the folks who call Iceland home.
And this really shows you that Icelanders are paying for a lot more than just a carton of milk at the store. Those high taxes and high prices are funding an amazing social safety net. We're talking about things like tuition-free education all the way through university and heavily subsidized healthcare. So while a tourist might be wincing at a $70 soup bill, a local paying only $30 out of pocket for an MRI scan is seeing a very different kind of value for their money.
All right, so let's pull all these different threads together and take a look at the final complete picture.
So it's not one single thing, is it? It's a whole stack of factors, all piled on top of each other. You've got a remote island that has to import most of its food. That long journey is expensive. Then the government adds on protective tariffs to help local farmers. After that, a 24% VAT gets tacked on at the end. And finally, the whole system is supported by high local wages, which also drives up the cost of doing business. And that brings us to our final thought. The question really isn't just why is the food so expensive, it's also what are Icelanders getting in return for that cost? When you look at that high price tag, you're not just seeing the cost of a tomato. You're seeing the cost of economic independence, of preserving a unique culture, and of funding a society that provides an incredible level of care for its people.
So what do you think? Is it a fair trade-off? If you've ever been to Iceland, I would love to hear your sticker shock stories down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and if you found this interesting, do me a favor and hit that like button, share it with a friend who's planning a trip, and of course, subscribe for more explainers just like this one. We'll see you in the next one.